Hello, Internet, and thank you very much for tuning into the Cloud Native FM podcast. Today, we're talking about Portainer. Portainer is one of my favorite tools from early 2021 to until now because I was introduced to Portainer back then in 2021. So Portainer makes container operations simple, whether you run Docker, Kubernetes, or hybrid cluster. Portainer gives team a single intuitive control plane to onboard developers, deploy apps, enforce access, and troubleshoot without needing a dozen of CLI commands. The result: faster adoption, lower ops, overhead, and confident team moving through their cloud native journey. So, with me, the co-founder, the CEO of the company who's been at the pivotal front of all this innovation. Welcome back to the show, Neil. Your first appearance on the Cloud Native FM podcast. Over to you. So, give us a quick intro of yourself and tell us where you are busy these days.
Well, thank you. Thanks for the opportunity as well. I'm Neil. I currently reside in Phoenix, Arizona. Portainer is actually a company from New Zealand, for those that didn't know, but trying to build an international software company from New Zealand is pretty hard. So being a US time zone is significantly easier on your personal work-life balance and general mental well-being. So
Yes,
now,
absolutely.
in regards to Portainer, as you said, we've been around a while. We actually started out in 2016. We started getting really serious late 2020. 2021 was when we had our first commercial version of the product in the market, and it's been growing in adoption ever since. The open source version is simply ridiculous. It's everywhere. The amount of people who I speak to who have used or still use Portainer at home in their home labs to automate their house, their NAS boxes. It's everywhere. It's anywhere. It's amazing. The business edition is also doing very well in large enterprises. Initially, when I thought about commercializing Portainer, I actually thought it would be more of a mid-market tool. But in actuality, it ended up being more of a large enterprise tool. Yeah, our customers are global 2000 type organizations, defense, government, manufacturing, finance. So it's been an interesting ride so far, that's for sure.
Yes, absolutely. So, Neil, tell us from the first question for me, because I've been following Portainer for 2021 as I started in the pitch saying. So, tell us, the first question is how Portainer is different from 2021 into the 2025.
Well, millions of dollars of R&D definitely makes a difference. That's for sure. Before 2021, we were bootstrapped and building something ourselves, and so we had a very, very small team who did whatever they could to drive the product forward. But when you're getting requests from every single possible direction, community and customers and our own roadmap, it becomes quite difficult to actually move forward. Once you go commercial and you start to get money coming in, you really can double down on product development. And so we've had significant R&D investment since 2021. So we moved from being more of a Docker tool to being a container management tool, and then we moved from being a tool to being a platform. So many people would think of Portainer as this Docker UI or just a UI overlay, and that's where we started. And then when we first added support for Kubernetes, we kind of did the same thing. We were just a UI overlay. But now we've kind of moved on from that and said, being an overlay, being a UI, it's not that useful. What's really useful is actually helping remove just the massive operational burden that containerization and Kubernetes in particular inflicts on us engineers. For whatever reason, I don't know whether it's Stockholm syndrome or what, but we seem to enjoy the pain and suffering of just the complexity of this landscape. And Portainer's whole ethos is No, that's a terrible idea. We really don't like the idea of burning out engineers. We need to make this technology significantly easier to operate and understand. And so we are now a management platform. So to answer your question, from 2021 to now, it's the pivot from Docker to Kubernetes and from Kubernetes to a complete platform.
Yes, absolutely. Because absolutely, as you said, like, perfectly. Because I think we back then we everybody's been really excited with the containerization, bring into the new innovation of deploying and managing and packaging the application. We never thought we could do this, and now we actually been spinning up. But we end up in a scenario where we actually have to manage everything. We have to manage etcd, API servers, scheduler, control plane, registries, access control, RBAC, container image signing, verification, or something like scanning of the images and deploying images in the different registries, making sure the TLS certification is being rotated. That is one of a giant task for the developer to do this stuff in hand. And they were looking at forward to having some simplified version of, oh, I have a CLI command, let's move on. Their container is up into the Kubernetes cluster. You don't need to worry about. Let's move your application down into the where your customers are. So I think that's the flexibility Portainer added. And I think they really shine in the market because of the simplicity they bring into the table as well. But as of in 2025 we're living in, we see there's a new wave is being happening. The clusters are now becoming, everybody's saying, oh, are your cluster is AI ready? Are your workloads are AI ready? Are your platform is equally important for the developers and the platform engineers? So, or is that a unified platform? So my next question circle around. Now we have a platform engineering team, the AI team, and the development team as well. So if some of the user or listening to us and using the Portainer, so what is the heavy usage of the Portainer? Is it coming from the development team, or is it the platform team, or the mix of both?
If you think back to the history of containers and Kubernetes, right? What was the goal, the original goal, right? The original goal was that developers wanted to ship fast, to break things, and to fix things themselves, right? Like developers felt quite hamstrung by traditional IT, right? And so IT, from a developer perspective, used to be the department of no. I want something. No, you cannot. It's not part of our policy. It's not part of our rules. And so containerization was a way for developers to take complete control of themselves and say, I'm going to build and deploy everything that I need to run my app, right?
Yes.
And it very much became a be careful what you wish for, because by taking on accountability and responsibility for this environment, then this magical thing called DevOps was coined, right? Where now the developer is also responsible for the operations. It was the you build it, you support it ethos, right? Well, that's cool. Now you got developers who are fundamentally being not only a developer, and by the way, we know that developers are in scarce. Yeah, they're very scarce, and they're in high demand, right? So now all of a sudden we've taken a high demand but scarce resource and told them you now actually need to manage infrastructure and operations related to your platform. That wasn't very efficient. And we really started to see a lot of DevOps engineers get burnt out, because now all of a sudden it's a IT department and a person. So then all of a sudden, DevOps was kind of, pushed to one side a little bit. All of those memes, DevOps is dead, long live platform engineering. Because then platform engineering came about and said, well, actually, DevOps is creating quite a burden on our developers. So let's move that and centralize it to a team and call it platform engineering, right? And so now you've got developers who want to write code and ship stuff. And then you've got a platform engineering team whose job is to build and run the platform. So now you've got this duality of role. Well, Portainer suits both. Portainer is a tool that is almost always deployed by platform engineering as an enablement tool for devs. So devs are the people who will log in and use Portainer to triage their applications, to configure their own GitOps pipelines inside Portainer, do whatever they need to do. But it's platform engineering who have deployed the product. It's platform engineering who have built the guardrails, the policies, the quotas, whatever else. So it's that duality of role. Almost always platform engineering deployed and configured Portainer, but then the developers are the people who actually use it. Or in organizations that don't develop their own software, then there'll be an ops team who are deploying off-the-shelf software through Portainer. Does that make sense?
Yes, absolutely, 100%. Because I think a lot of the listeners of the podcast might see like where the Portainer fit into it. And as you mentioning, it's not just centered around just the one set of constraint or the one set of the field. Is a mixage of what the platform actually build the infrastructure for them. So you, as a platform engineer, you can go into the Portainer and make sure that all the things available are easy accessible for the developers, and the developer has a very friendly user experience, or the developer experience inside the Portainer as what they want. They actually have those. And also platform engineer making sure you have the right set of policies and accessibility for the developer, because you don't give permission to the junior developer with all the access to whatever they do. You need to have a fine-grained access to it. And that the beauty of the Portainer. And I love this feature a lot because you have role-based access control to whatever you have been doing inside the Portainer. But the next question, I move into this little bit of the buyer side of it as well, because when the Kubernetes eventually started, a lot of the companies understand this. Oh, Kubernetes is quite a complex tool, and everybody want to simplify things. Everybody step in and they say, we have abstraction for you. Don't need to worry about. We have abstraction for you to work with the ingress controller, the service meshes, observability tools, or the GitOps tool in general. Everybody providing abstraction, so making sure the developer are actually easy accessible plain. But it's when I find it's really hard to sell those products in the market, because you need to tell first people why you need Kubernetes. And when they understand, yes, I need Kubernetes, and then you told Kubernetes is a complex tool, you have to have abstraction for you, and then you sell your product on the top of it as well. So do you see in 2025 selling Portainer is a lot simpler back then, or is it now, or how is actually messaging or revolve with your customer when you're talking about Portainer of elevator pitch when you're sending to them?
So things have changed a lot, actually. So if you look back 2, 3, 4 years, right? So at that stage, in that time, Kubernetes was still the realm of early adopters, right?
Yes.
Now, early adopters have a very, very high pain threshold, right? Very high pain threshold. They're okay to stitch together a bunch of tools for it to not work as they expect. And they really enjoy the challenge of getting something working that doesn't work out the box, right? That it's fun, it's challenge, it's exciting. They can go to KubeCon events, they can go on stage, and they can present how they mastered this complicated beast and built something amazing. That's cool in the early adopter, right? And every technology has to go through that phase. There comes a time in the market where it crosses into mainstream. Mainstream's threshold for pain is non-existent.
Yes.
They want to pay money, and the money they pay, they want a product that works today, tomorrow, the next day, and it works exactly as it says on the brochure. And it's incredibly easy to operate, because the mainstream people, they don't have the time, the investment, the desire to go and build this huge, complicated technical behemoth. They just want something that works, so they can get on shipping software and applications for the business, right? And so when you get to that crossover point, we don't sell simplicity, because what they want is a tool that works. And so they're looking for more of an all-in-one piece of capability. They want a single vendor that does all these things. There's not the desire. So it's not like we're simplifying the landscape. We're giving an option that you can buy Portainer today, you can implement it tomorrow, and you're live in it the week after, right? That's unheard of in a self-built platform. So it's not selling simplicity, it's selling time savings. So you'll get something live quick, it'll be production ready, enterprise hardened, configured well, it's nice and secure, and operational in a week. You just can't do that, and so the mainstream want that fast response time, the easy way, the safe way done. That's the difference.
Yes, 100% absolutely. Because I think because that when you actually adopt Kubernetes, you introduce delays in your some of the processes. Also, you introduce the cognitive load in for the development and the infrastructure team as well. And also, you introduce new security vulnerability in your stack, and that also causing some of the delays as well. And that's where you need some internal tooling that actually been give you the faster time to the market, because without that you have to build some scratch tooling for you, and that is not a viable business model to begin with. Similar to the cloud, when you actually people move into the cloud because of the faster time to the market as well. And
Yeah.
also the cloud native, yes, you have a wonderful layers that you can extend or extensible for your workload need, but remember it's a new shift and you need a faster time to the market, and those tooling eventually evolve. But I think it's still, I've seen talking with some of the other CEOs, it's still very tough winning the sales in the cloud native market, because first you
Absolutely.
have to go, you have to go through so many stages. Why this solution? I need this. And then you people see the need, they see new challenges, and you have to tell them these are the challenges we solve. So it's a very kind of a concrete and sometimes a very overly or debatable message for the customer, like what is the thing we have been developing, how this actually help you in the longer run as well. But we move into the 2025, it's now is beginning into the end, is now it's ending. So if I've talked to a lot of the people around there, there's a new terms coming up in the umbrella, like something called digital sovereignty is been coining up a lot. The Europe is actually moving into that paradigm shift as well. Also, there's a lot of the loopholes people find out in the container ecosystem and the Kubernetes ecosystem as well. Now, the platform engineering is aiming to solve those, but we have internal developer platform is built around as well. So, Neil, according to your experience with the customers or internally, are you thinking about this internal developer platform approach inside the Portainer, or is there any research being doing up? What's your opinion on this bigger hype around internal developer portal or platform, however people like to call it?
So IDPs are yet another layer of abstraction, right? And why do we need a layer of abstraction? Because we've built a platform that's too complicated to understand, right? So the first question and the first problem is, why have we built a platform that's so blooming complicated that we now need yet another layer of abstraction? In all honesty, do you need an IDP if you use Portainer as your platform? No. Yeah, but Portainer is incredibly intuitive. Any developer can log into Portainer and deploy and triage their applications. You don't need another layer on top. It's super intuitive. You need an IDP if you've built a platform that only an absolute ninja can understand, right? So already it's basically a band-aid on a band-aid and on a band-aid, right? We're laying these abstractions. If you have a platform that's easier to understand, you don't necessarily need an IDP platform. That said, yes, we have already started looking at an IDP. We have partnered with a company called Canine, Canine.sh, Canine.sh. And this is a code to prod or code to release tool that you connect to your source code, and then Canine will automatically detect the programming language that you've written your application in. It'll use build packs to go and automatically build Docker files. It'll then upload or push the resultant image. It'll then automatically create the manifests that are needed, and then it will deploy into a Kubernetes cluster through Portainer, all for you in one button push. So as a developer, you can log into Canine, connect it to your source code and say publish or promote. or deploy, and 1, 2, 3 is now running in Kubernetes, and you haven't had to do anything. Now that is a significantly easier way, rather than having to wrangle your own CI/CD pipelines, GitOps pipelines, try and build your own Docker files. That's a much easier way. So that we plan to release the first version of that in the upcoming KubeCon Atlanta next month. And that'll be a beta version, and then there'll be a full GA version in January. That's about as close as we get to an IDP. So that's kind of our angle there. There'll also be a degree of AI assistance added to that front end layer as well to make things a lot easier. So, my perception, IDPs are a way to hide complexity that platform engineering have added. You don't necessarily need it. But yes, we're also going down that way a little bit to help remove some of the cognitive overload that devs having to run their own pipelines is introduced as well.
Yes, absolutely, 100%. And I think it's a very good news for the developers as well, because as you mentioned perfectly, because we don't need the UI, and the approach has to be so simple that everybody can use. It's not a super complex abstraction that you need another layer on top of it to understand what the hell is going on behind the scene as well. So it's a very good call as well. And also, I think the developer need a workflow like this. I want to push my code into the repository. I want my container images to be built. And that's okay, when the container images has been built, I have a tag available. Let's push into the Docker registry or whichever registry you happen to access with. And then you need to deploy that stuff into the Kubernetes cluster or in the cloud or in other on-prem and edge devices as well. So once we have a very simple way of CI/CD pipeline kind of a scenario set up, that's a very simple way to begin with. You don't need to understand how the complicated process is. It's just a step-by-step execution happening inside the pipeline, and you will be happy as a developer. And you don't need another portal or platform layer on top of it to talk with that next underneath layer. So that's the beauty of the Portainer as well. So I really like that approach, and looking forward to the Canine.sh. I link those in the YouTube description because it's a very handsome project. And I think if the developer are listening to this podcast, they will be the first who will be delighted for this, because they are writing Docker file, they're building images, they are building Docker multi-stage Docker file, they are optimizing the container images, they're pushing the container to registry, and they're looking for a way to have a very one simple command line that do all the heavy lifting for them. So that's a Canine.sh can introduce to your workflow as well. So that's a very nice to hear. And also, Neil, I think if you look at the cloud native ecosystem in general, there's service meshes, there are GitOps, there are also tools like Crossplane who can introduce operator-based ecosystem into the Kubernetes as well. So in terms of other layers, sometimes customer need service meshes or observability, Prometheus, Grafana. Sometimes they don't. So how you look at the other layers in the cloud native ecosystem inside the Portainer? If somebody needs observability with Grafana and Prometheus, is there extensibility that the Portainer bring into it, or is there a integration hooks for the customers who can embed those in as well? What's your customer experience on those other set of technologies around service mesh, GitOps, and observability?
So Portainer is designed to kind of be a all-in-one tool. So everything you need, nothing you don't, is kind of the tagline we use, right? And so we looked at enterprises and said, okay, well, look, if 60 to 70% of enterprises need these core capabilities, we'll add those into Portainer, because that covers most use cases, and then you don't really need to use any other tool but Portainer. Now, of course, when you start to get into the more extreme needs, then yes, you might be wanting to add service mesh. By the way, most people add service meshes because they want to, not because they need to. Most people add most tools from the CNCF because they want to, not because they need to. I'm very strict on the want versus need analysis. There's a big difference between I want it and I need it. And I think we actually justify a want as a need far too easily, which causes our own mental confusion, complexity, and burnout. By the way, as an aside, it's scary when you go into the DevOps and the Kubernetes subreddits and you read the number of people who are getting burnout. And so much of it is actually self-inflicted just because of confusing want versus need. I want this, thinking I need it, and then deploying all these tools, and then the operational overhead, the context switching causes burnout. That's sad and bad. You should really be trying to minimize the number of tools you have in your environment, not maximize the number of tools you have in your environment.
Absolutely.
That's an aside. But we kind of look at it and say, okay, well, if we can provide the core capabilities, then how do you expand those when you need to? We have a completely transparent Kubernetes API proxy, and you can kind of plug anything into that proxy and expand it. So if you want to deploy Argo CD because you've outgrown Portainer's built-in GitOps engine, cool, you can do that, and you can hook it into our API. If you want to plug anything into our API proxy, you can do so. But inside the UI, it's our core capability. If you expand beyond our core capability, then you are alt-tabbing out to another tool, another window to manage those tools as if you had deployed them separately. So I always say try and resist the urge to expand unless you genuinely need that capability, and be hard on yourself. Do I really need it? We've actually published a document which I'll share with you, which you can share to listeners here, which is a hierarchy of needs. And what we did was went and surveyed a large number of our customers and said, what do your users actually need out of a platform? As a developer, what are your jobs to be done? As a security officer, like a CISO, and what are your jobs to be done? As a platform engineer, what are your jobs? And so we went round everyone who touches containerization and asked them what are their jobs to be done, and we built this hierarchy of needs map. If you want, it's an RFP checklist, so you can run through and say, can the platform I'm building tick off all of these things? If so, it's probably going to be a very well-rounded, comprehensive platform. So I'll share that with you. That is a user view of a container management platform. What do the users of the platform actually want it to do, as opposed to, from an engineering perspective, what do I want the platform to provide to my users? This is the other way around. From a user perspective, what do I want out of a platform? And by the way, as platform engineers, we should always be building only what our users want, not what we want, because what we want is irrelevant. It's our users that matter.
Yes, 100% truly. That's a way to think about it, because I think you mentioned wonderfully well, because you need to understand your need versus want. And want you always fulfill, but the need are the most of the things you actually been hurting if those are not available in the cluster, or if they compromise somehow. So I think it's a wonderful battle between want versus need. I wish more of the people realize this, because as you mentioned, most of the people have added so much into the cluster. It's been kind of a burnout for the developers, because in order to just see the logs of what went wrong, they have to go through hours and hours of forensic of where things has been hitting the most corner point as well. So it's a perfect way to think about. But the question, I think the next question I talk about on the business model here is, if we look in the internal ecosystem today, is like what I feel like most of the solution that has actually been originating is because of the want rather than the need. That is how I see it. This might be
100%.
that's for me, it's kind of a really frustrating, because I think there's a one tool came up in the market, and multiple people are starting using it without understanding what is the use case or the real benefit of it. And then the next layer started again to make sure it become a simpler, easier way to access it. Then the next layer starting as make sure it had a secure security vulnerabilities inside it. Then there's a policy layer started on it, and then there's observability. There's a whole ecosystem has been coining out. But the some enterprises, as I talk to them, they're literally confused. Like, we don't want or need that kind of a solution. But the economy we have actually been living in is kind of a want becoming a so much of a bigger thing than we actually becoming a will we actually reach a ladder so top that when you look behind the curtain, you say, oh, there's this, what the hell I'm actually been doing in that top of the ladder. So in the economy of the want versus need, Neil, so what is the way to go for winning some sort of investor pitches in here? Because most of the solution stays around because of the complexity and the simplicity you provide, but we are often forgetting, do we really need this tool?
Yeah, I mean, it's quite interesting, right? Like if you look at the cloud native landscape, as you said, right, there are tools popping up every day. Every single day, someone is producing a new tool. Again, go spend time on Reddit, and you'll see that there's new tools every single day that are solving one particular problem that person experienced. Just because they experienced that problem doesn't mean the problem is widespread. There are so many tools in the landscape that are a solution looking for a problem. And people are like, oh, that's interesting. I'll go try that. And then tools get added. There's a term we use called engineered complexity. And that is simply said where we've self-inflicted, we have engineered our own complicated environment. And it's like, oh my goodness, what have we done? The landscape is full of startups who have a product that solves one problem. They've got money from investors to go and tell the world how their product is amazing and how you can't live without it. And so we all listen to the stories of all these products, and we go use them. We use the free version because it's free, and we have these array of free tools. And then it's like, oh my goodness, these are complicated. There must be an easier way to manage this free tool. Oh, of course there is. There's the paid version from that vendor. And so then all of a sudden you're now adding paid versions in all these free tools. So where you might have Kubernetes down the bottom, you've then maybe got 20 or 30 discrete individual free open source products that you're sure you need. You don't really, but you're sure you need. But then you've actually created yourself complexity. So now you go license them. And so now you got now all of a sudden you're licensing, and it's like, hang on, this is just all getting out of hand. And again, come back. What do you want? What do you need? And the way that I determine want versus need, can you operate the platform without it? Yes or no? And if the tool is there, is it providing you measurable business value over not having it? So if you took the tool away, what happens to the business operations? Will you deliver a worse SLA? Will you have a higher cost of operation? Will you get more call out tickets, for the on-call engineers? There had better be an absolute business benefit to adopting that piece of software. Otherwise, don't put that piece of software in there. And it has to be measurable. You have to be able to measure it. Stand in front of the CIO. Imagine going to the CFO and justifying why you've added that tool. Ignore how much it costs, because even a free tool costs you money, time. Can you justify why you put that tool in to someone who is fiscally responsible? If you can't, the tool shouldn't be there.
Yes, 100%. Totally agree with you on this point as well, because I think that this business model, like adding an open source tool and then adding an enterprise layer on top of it and adding a subscription base, I don't think so it's working in this set of economy. And economy is kind of a recession. A lot of the geopolitics involved. A lot of the companies is not generating much of the revenue, and those companies are not actually buying those subscription based model. So it's really come to the point what's problem they actually have, and if the tool solve, I think it's an easier ride for the subscription based model to work with. Otherwise, if they don't understand, if they don't have the need for that tool, whatever the approaches you do, it's going to be a really tough road to climb, or really tough road to follow for that path as well. That's totally agree with you as well. But Neil, before I let you off, just one area I would try to hit upon, that is AI. I definitely want your opinion on this. Currently, we see in the container ecosystem, there's a model context protocol has been shaping up the development environment as well. Like there are some tool who actually been not just fixing the cluster, but also they've been pointing out where things goes wrong. And if they spot them, they are remediating those kind of cluster without actually developers know how things have been fixed around is there. How are your team looking at the AI layer inside the Portainer?
So we have a first version of a MCP server that will let you talk with Portainer, and you can investigate what is happening with Portainer through conversation. We are definitely looking to AI as a augmentation layer. AI does a bunch of things very, very well, one of which is being able to ingest vast quantities of data at light speed and then try and find clues in the data. It can help you find that needle in a haystack very, very quickly. Logs are one key benefit. You've got platform logs, you've got deployment logs, you've got pod logs, you've got logs. How do you actually sequence them all to try and find cause versus effect? Cause and effect is horrendous. You may have 1,000 alarms triggering all red, alarm bell, alarm bell, alarm bell. 99.9999% of them are the effect. Only one of those things is the actual cause. How do you find that as quick as you can? Because the sooner you can figure out the cause of a problem, the sooner you can fix it, the sooner that service is restored or whatever impact is remediated. So AI, I think, has immense value in cause and effect assistance, so weeding through and time slicing, getting everything right. And AI has benefits in regards to compliance. You can go and ingest vast quantities of YAML configuration, whatever else, compare it against best practice, and look for defects. So they're the two areas where I am the most interested is human aid as opposed to human replacement.
Yes, 100%. And I think as you mentioning, because I think recently in the AWS outage, I think they have missed the cause and effect, and the whole internet was going down as well. And I think these are the very neat criticality here, because I think a lot of the MCP server are really good at like, oh, there is a one of the image is running as latest tag. Oh, let me fix it for the developer because it's a very simple fix for them. Or something like, oh, is somebody having a third party tooling is accessing my cluster, or let's stop it from accessing it because they don't have credential access to it. So those who we need actually a human intervention for a very small and niche thing, AI can do it in a very fast way and a more reliable way than developers. Some of the things AI can do is more reliable because they have the data and they have all the previous version of it, and they can trickle through and find the best solution out of it as well. So it's been great to hear that the team is building some MCP server as well. So I will link those and we'll see people what their what are the comments are for some of the things are. So
I mean, it's really interesting, right? Because hallucinations are still a very real thing. We like internally we were playing with the KH-GPT this week, right? We wanted to test it against our API and just see how it worked with our proxy. And so one of my engineering guys was playing around with that. He was reading all of the docs of KH-GPT, which clearly have been built by AI, clearly, right? And looking at the docs, there's a lot of hallucinations in the docs. It's giving you instructions on how to use KH-GPT, but the instructions don't work. They're not there, right? So hallucinations are still a thing. Now, do you want a platform that can still hallucinate, have admin access on your environment? Do you really want to just let it go on your environment? And that's why from our perspective we're saying we want it to be a human aid as opposed to a human replacer. So a human still needs to look at the results, make their own decision determination before something happens. So we're taking a relatively cautious approach, because why do you want to gamble with your core infrastructure? I mean, for goodness sake, it's this isn't Kubernetes to run Doom and some low tier application. If you're running an application on Kubernetes, it's probably running your business.
yes.
Let's not gamble with that. We want to be super careful. Treat that platform with the respect it needs. Don't go start throwing AI automation at it and hope for the best.
100%, because I think AI also need the intent of the action as well. And I think sometimes we are blaming AI because we never giving a good intent to the AI as well. Never give the intention of what the
Hmm.
action was, and never did. And I think the AI is good in all of the sense, but it doesn't understand how the organization work. That's where the AI lacks. And the human
Hmm.
experience is vital here because humans are actually who are the one who building the organization. They understand the policies, and unfortunately, those policies are not no longer written in some of the docs or some of the PDF. It's locked down in the people's head. So that's the other problem the AI have. You don't have to. I think its intent is very important as well because I think every action it takes it has a business consequences to it. Somebody has making a transaction into it. The MCP protocol fix it out. Is it that transaction is being happily applied or it's past state or is being terminated? So that's where the business has some loss into it as well. So that's where I think the human intervention is vital here. And I think it's very important to actually have those policies being enabled via some of the human aid rather than AI doing all the stuff for you as well. It might save you some money, but if some of the outage happen, it will give all the money back from you. So that's other problem with AI as well.
Correct. Correct.
Absolutely. So Neil,
Yeah.
thank you very much. It's super informative talking with you as well because I always love to find some of the user experience, the customer experience, what they want, what they need on this podcast as well. And thank happily you actually giving us my new analogy for the future episode as well. We really want to understand what's our need are. If we find our need, we have a
Hmm.
wonderful product to follow. And if we choose the route of the want, we may end up be climbing the ladder. Might be there no user alongside us. So it we definitely want our user to
Yeah.
have with us while we're actually climbing the journey as well. But it's been super interesting talking with you as well. So Neil, we are ending this year 2025 as of this. So tell us what are your some of the wish list for the Portainer and in the community in general for the 2026?
That the adoption of containers is going to continue to skyrocket. We still see containers popping up like mushrooms. There is, we saw this, 15, 20 years ago with VMs, where all of a sudden VMs were just went boom and they just ballooned, and there were VMs in every corner of IT. We're seeing the same thing now with containers, right? So there are containers everywhere. It's so easy to spin up a container. You spin up a container, often you actually forget about it. Even in our own internal infrastructure, I log into some of our cloud providers and it's like, hey, what is that container for? Can I delete it? We're paying money for it. Can I delete it? I don't know. So these containers just multiply and multiply and multiply, and before you know it, you got them everywhere. So we're really focused on helping people wrangle back control of this. So better annotation on application deployments. What are they for? Who deployed them? But then also significantly more large scale fleet management. So you can now connect to and bring in all of your environments everywhere of any orchestrator, any type. We aren't just a Kubernetes tool; we are a container tool. And so you can use Portainer and plug it into your Docker environments, your Podmans, your Azure ACIs, your Kubernetes, whatever. We can plug it in, bring everything in. You've now got better visibility, better control, better governance, better security policy. It's more around. So next year for me, it's like, how do we just keep expanding that and trying to ensure that we can just get wrestle back control of this ballooning landscape, which is introducing significant security risks when they're not properly designed and maintained.
Absolutely, 100% as well. And also best wishes for some of your new product you will be launching in KubeCon Atlanta. I will be sharing the link with the people on the YouTube description so people can see what are the benefit of actually been using those product as well. So those are the best wishes. I'm actually been giving you some advance as well. And hopefully I will be meet you again on the live stream. We'll be doing it at KubeCon Atlanta. I will see you on the Portainer booth and we will talking about what the customer experience was when you're actually in the KubeCon as well. But it's super delighted to
Absolutely.
have you on my YouTube show, and it's been I will hopefully to be stay in touch with you, making sure you are more busy than ever on the communication side of things and telling us some of the unique ways to look at the ecosystem as well. But folks and everyone
Cool.
listening to this podcast, if you enjoy the podcast, tell us what you like to hear and how your experience with working with Portainer things you like most, some of your wish list for the product, and some of the things you see they've actually been quite improved in the longer run. Please link those on the YouTube comment section, because I have Neil Creswell with me, and he will be back those finding with his team and make sure the product is getting more mature. For me, Portainer is focused on the human workflow. Onboarding, governance, and troubleshooting are designed for real teams, not just for the platform engineers. That means
Correct.
developer get less friction getting apps running, and platform team keep control with RBAC and audit trail. And SREs can standardize operation without building a custom console. For customer on a cloud native journey, Portainer is often the bridge from proof of concept to production. It shortens the learning curve, provides safe guardrails for scale, and lets organization migrate legacy app into the modern run times with less risk. With that, thank you very much, Neil, for joining us on this podcast. We look forward to meeting you again, and have a wonderful day, everyone. Stay safe, stay happy. Bye.